Hey Weirdos, Evan Jarvix with Make Oklahoma Weirder. It is Sunday evening, enjoying the break in the weather here, and it is August the 2nd, already August, and time for another vlog. Got to start this one off with the Ivy. The Ivy, I don't know if you've been following the Ivy here quite lately, but big news over in that camp. The Ivy, who I followed pretty early on. I remember seeing them at Metro Music Fest way back in 2016, I believe it was. They played at like the Songwriters Room, which is one of those indoor stages that was tucked away that if you went to the event, you would probably have a hard time finding it unless you just knew where you were going and knew who you wanted to see. One of those kind of things. And they had a late set. I caught part of it, and I remember saying, I want to keep tabs on these guys. They were a different band at the time, but I was really curious to see if they would stick together, if they would keep going, and if so, where they would wind up, because I thought they had a pretty cool thing going. And lo and behold, if you did not see the memo, they played Lollapalooza over the weekend, which is huge. I assume most of you will know Lollapalooza, but if you don't, it's one of the biggest music festivals in the country that features a who's who of contemporary music. Really big deal to be on this thing, and they are officially on that lineup. They played this weekend. You can catch, they had a video that's on the Lollapalooza YouTube channel that you can watch with a couple of songs in an outdoor session. Lollapalooza even threw a tweet out saying that they really enjoyed the Ivy's set, so it's real, it's legit. It's kind of one of those pinch me moments, like here the Ivy was, a few years back just playing this back room, venue, and here they are now playing Lollapalooza. Jeez. And it seems like it kind of came out of nowhere. It was a surprise to me. It seemed to be a surprise to a lot of people, and to the Ivy as well, because their way of announcing it was just screenshotting there's a piece of hair or something on here. I live with animals, I'm sorry. But they just tweeted out and Instagrammed 3 exclamation points and a screenshot of the lineup with their name circled, and yeah, it felt pretty unreal. But congrats to the Ivy. They did put out a new EP, by the way, if you haven't heard it yet. Put a lot into it. I know they've really been trying to push their social media and Spotify presence in particular, and this EP is mostly from singles that they've put out over the months, but still very good. Definitely something to check out if you haven't been following them. If you like the current sounds of where synth pop music is, that is the Ivy, and especially the first couple of songs on this new EP I like quite a bit. So, congrats, the Ivy. Not sure how it happened or how you did it, but it's nice to see you get this kind of recognition, and it's kind of unreal to see. So, congrats. Moving on from there, that was the big news for me. There's so many other artists to talk about. All kinds of people have been putting music out even during quarantine, and it's kind of amazing to see. And I never get to everybody. I wish I could. And honestly, just real quick, if you ever wonder, if you've sent me stuff and you don't hear anything back, I'm working on it. I'm really trying to figure out how to up my productivity, because I feel like I spend so much time just keeping track of everything that I don't always have energy left over to do stuff like this, and I want to do more stuff like this. I mean, Karger Traum just dropped an album this weekend. That's a big deal over on Fixed Rhythm, which I've been following, and they do really great work here in Oklahoma and beyond. And Karger Traum is such a unique project that we're really lucky to have. And if you know about them, you know. They put on a cool live show. They put on really good studio work. But Karger Traum, who I probably won't get to talk at length about at any point, but I will try because they deserve it. Micah Smith put out an album here this past weekend. Haven't heard it yet, but Micah Smith is a guitarist from the metal scene, more or less, that I've been keeping an eye out for. Didn't know it was going to come in the form of a solo album, because I saw him just as a guitarist in a band that honestly he was way too good for. And I kept tabs on the band, but I really kept my eye on this guy, and he's been in a number of other projects over the years, but he's got a solo album out that I really want to listen to because he's a phenomenal guitarist. And Qinn dropped a new single, Lemonade. I've been following Qinn. You'll probably hear more from me about Qinn by the end of the year. I hope, at least. That's the plan. But Qinn, if you haven't heard Lemonade yet, it's more wonderful, glossy pop music with a bit of a understated alternative perspective to it. But yeah, I could just list people off all day, but I kind of want to get into Stepmom a little bit. That's kind of on the agenda for me because I feel like I haven't really talked about Stepmom nearly enough, and I'm hoping to remedy that. Stepmom has been working for a couple of years now, I guess, and there are 3 singles under their belt now. I guess 4 if you include Factory Obscure's mixtape, which is not publicly available unless you actually purchase the physical mixtape from Factory Obscura. But they have a song on there called Sad Disco, which honestly, pretty fitting title for kind of their, I wouldn't say it's their aesthetic at all, but just kind of that pairing of sad and disco. Their other singles include, Paper and Wax and Party People, and they love their melting naked Barbie dolls. Like it's a whole aesthetic. It's a whole thing. If you ever catch a show, it looks like they actually bring bedroom dressing up to their stages, and it's, they're a really interesting, cool, very conceptual band, fronted by Lindsay Cox. If you don't know, Lindsay Cox, who has had her hand in all sorts of pots in the music scene and has been in a couple of different bands, and this is kind of her baby from what I understand, and it's a very female-centric project, and you can tell it's also the sounds are quite broad. They incorporate a lot of influences, but it all comes from kind of the same perspective, and they just express it in different ways. And I think you really get that from the new single, which is called Vampires, which dropped this week. Vampires, I'm really glad it's out there now because it shows more of what the band can do beyond. I mean, they've had variety, but there's always been kind of this melancholy angle to it. And I would say that there's probably some level of it that's in the new single, but it's expressed in a much more energetic, much more rock-heavy way than their other stuff has so far. And if you ever see a show from them, you'll see that that's part of it, but it just hasn't been out there on the streaming platforms. So check out Vampires for sure. It's got xylophone in it, which I like a lot. Kind of reminds me of like the manic energy of Captain Beefheart in a way. I don't know if that's what they're going for, but it works. It's very feisty. I think that's that might not be the best word, but it's got an energy to it that's different. It's more up in your face. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like some LCG and the X, to use like a local comparison, which I consider very high praise. By the way, if you haven't listened to the LCG record, which dropped back in like March, I think, they had to cancel their album release show just at the very start of this whole coronavirus thing. So you might have missed the album. So please go check that out as well. But Stepmom, they have like strings. I love things that have chamber elements in there. So if you like cello and violin, they got some of that too. So I feel like I've really dropped the ball in talking about these gals because it's good stuff. It's really good stuff, and I hope to do more for them. As I do with everyone else. There's tons of other music out there as well. There's tons of voices that are not heard to the level that they really should be. I've just got a minute left, and I want to shout out Yeahman the Great real quick. He's from Elk City, the same town that Samantha Crane once wrote a whole song about being a dead-end place for people. And yet, Yeahman the Great finds a way to make a 70-minute epic acoustic-fueled album that's all about, rekindling your love for life and finding, positivity and going with it. I really like this album, and it's very indulgent, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily self-indulgent. It's almost life-indulgent, if you will. Check out the new album from Yeahman the Great, and it's got a lot of interesting musical left turns too, so be prepared for that. All right, catch you on the next one.